Well, howdy friends, Brian Flechsig of Mad River Outfitters in the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and I am here on the mighty Madison River in Montana. Really lucky to spend a few days on the water with friend and guide extraordinaire Johnny McClure, who's really the second best streamer fisherman I know personally. So anyway, we got a chance to talk with Johnny about some of the gear that we use, which I learned from him and his boss, Kelly Gallup. So have a look. So as we've told you, friends, we've been doing a split trip here thanks to Johnny's level of intelligence and understanding of the river.
Lack thereof.
Wow. So we've been fishing streamers in the morning, which is quite frankly, of course, this afternoon I'll tell you that fishing hoppers is my favorite thing to do on the river. But really my favorite thing, as Johnny knows, is stripping streamers. A lot of times when I come, I just want to strip streamers, and these guys say, no, it's not that good. But we're here in August, and it's been good.
It's been good. It always is. About the worst time for this river is generally July when all their bugs are popping, but August has always been kind of a great streamer season if you get in early.
Yeah. Well, it certainly has been good for us the past couple of days. We did stick a couple of nice fish today. But I just wanted to take a second and talk about the gear that we're using. And first and foremost is the new Streamer X fly rods, which are from Echo, and they've been developed by your boss and friend and my mentor and friend, Kelly Gallup. And I got to tell you, I fished this rod a little bit at home, throwing some streamers on the Mad. I fished it throwing streamers for smallmouth, which is the same thing as throwing streamers for brown trout.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I got to tell you, I love this rod. It's one of my new favorite rods, and I think it's the best streamer rod on the market. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of the old bank robber from St. Croix. Unfortunately, it was discontinued, but these are pretty similar and actually lighter. I've been fishing them since they've come out, and been really happy with them. Most of the reports we've got back are great. The great thing about that is it has just a light enough midsection where you get some flex. Too often when we have a very fast rod that's ideal for streamers, the big crux is that your midsection is too stiff. So when you're trying to roll out all your sinking line to set your anchor, which is critical, it puts all the pressure on the tip, and so very often you have to make twice as many casts to get some line out.
I really think he's nailed this. This is, I've been throwing streamers up here ever since Kelly taught me to fish streamers, 2002, 2003, something like that. And it's by far the best rod I've found for exactly what you said, for picking that up, making your initial roll, and then shooting. And I found myself, it's so easy.
Yeah.
If you work the rod right and you let the rod do its job, don't overpower it, and then you let the line and your double haul do the job. It's an amazing rod, and then it does exactly what I want it to do when I'm stripping the flies. So I can't say enough about it. The Streamer X from Echo. Hopefully we'll get Kelly himself to tell us a little bit more about some of the features on it and why he designed it. But anyways. And then the line, of course, not to pump him up too much, is the Kelly Gallup Airflow Streamer Max Long. Now, is this the line that you use most often here on the river?
Most of the time, I change my grain weights depending on the section of the river that we're on. We're on the lower river today, which Madison, if you haven't been here, is actually it's one of the most unique places I've ever been. A lot of the upper river is pretty shallow. Mostly we're fishing, 1.5 to 3 feet deep, so we tend to lean more on the 200 grains up there.
Yeah, I love the 250 on the 7 weight, on the 6 weight up through the 200 grain. But it's just absolutely the perfect line for this style of fishing. And first of all, let's talk about, we were talking about this yesterday driving in the truck, and talked about the fact that again, Kelly absolutely pioneered sinking lines and the use of sinking lines the way we use them today. Back when I started in the industry in the 90s and even the early 2000s, we never sold sinking lines, and there was like 4 different options.
Yeah, mostly tips and short tips as well.
And people were afraid of them. They had no idea how to use them. And then we all read Modern Streamers for Trophy Trout, the book that literally changed everything, I think, for the entire industry. And then we started talking about fishing sinking lines in streams and rivers and even shallow water. I mean, we're fishing in 6 or 8 inches of water in some cases, and I've got a 250 grain line.
It's more about an efficiency standpoint. We're actually taking a shorter leader, which is generally between 3 and 5 feet, as opposed to a 9-footer with a floating line, and using the weight that's in the longer heads, especially when you get above like 24 to 30 feet. All that momentum helping propel the flies just makes it so much easier, and you can fish streamers for 5, 6, 7 days at a time instead of throwing around a big heavy fly with a floating line that's really not meant for it. So,
well, and that's a key again, that throwing a sinking line makes casting these big streamers easier.
I agree, and I think a lot of people think it's harder.
And every day people struggle with, and hey, can you talk about casting sinking lines, and they're afraid of them. But back to that point, when we started doing this stuff on our home river, on the Mad River, and I would tell people, hey, I'm fishing a sink tip or a one of these longer head sinking lines on the Mad River. They said, well, how can you do that? It's 2 or 3 foot deep. And what a lot of people forget, and I've heard Kelly say this, I'm sure I stole it from him, is that people forget that the moment you start stripping a sinking line, it stops sinking.
Yep, correct. You can keep it level for as much as you want. You can let it get down as much as you want, and you can keep it level as long as you want.
And by mending and by using different angles, your casting angle, you can control the depth. Something I've been doing today is, we talked a little bit about the control of the line with this hand. And a lot of times what I've been doing is I've been strip, and then I'll let some line out. I'll open up my hand and let some line out. That allows that line to get a little bit deeper, and then strip. And I think it yielded a couple of big brown trout for us today and some of those tail outs.
Yeah, exactly right. Line drop is always a good tactic when you're getting to the bottom of some of those, and you can let it dig just a little bit deeper. And also, what we talk a lot about leaders in relation to sinking line as well. You can skim shallower areas by increasing the length of your leader, also by changing the profile and basically dimensions of your fly. You can go unweighted. You can, skim weed beds with something like a zoo cougar or a heifer groomer, unweighted deer hair heads, or you can get down with big heavy lead eyes and wool heads, and so there's a lot of different tactics when it comes to it. But ultimately, the sinking line is the foundation of the efficiency.
It is. It is, and. A bunch of people have been talking about floating lines and stuff, and Kelly admitted to us yesterday, he's like, it's mostly sinking lines. He said, like I said, he is just the originator, and he was the first one that ever, I think, brought that to the industry, brought that to the world of using these techniques and being able to control your depth, to control all kinds of different things, like you just said. And there's a science to it, and having the right length of leader, having the right profile of fly, having the right weight of fly. And we've changed flies 8 or 10 times today already, just based on the water. So the leader I use, I go 4 foot typically, and off the 7 weight, I use 20 thousandths, which is 25 pound maxima. And what I have found is that, and it's Maxima Ultra Green. And what I have found is I just get the perfect bell curve on the 7 weight or the 250 grain. I get that perfect bell curve, so the energy flows perfectly from the tip of my fly line into the butt section. We have a new, I don't know if you've heard this one yet before, we have a new saying at the shop, and we're going to get this on t-shirts. And I want you to remember this, you'll love this. A good leader starts in the butt.
Only at Mad River Outfitters.
But that's perfect for Kelly too, right?
That's true.
Yeah, a good leader starts in the butt. I'm gonna share that one with Kelly.
I can't wait.
So a good leader starts in the butt, and then all I do is go to 15 thousandths, about a foot or so, which is 15 pound. This is 25 pound maximum ultra green. I go to 15 pound, 15 thousandths, and then of course, as you said this morning, no man should ever leave home without his 12 pound, which is 13 thousandths. And again, Maxima Ultra Green is what I use. I'll use clear off of a floating line. I use clear for saltwater, for throwing a tight loop at a bonefish or something, Maxima Clear. But I don't, do you ever use fluorocarbon?
Not very often. When I'm trying to teach streamers to beginners, sometimes I'll start off on floating lines just because of the familiarity of it. And then in which case I will use fluorocarbon just because of the diameter. Either that or I'll drop it down to 6 pound Maxima just because it needs to be able to break the surface a little bit and actually get down. But no, when it comes to sinking lines, if it ain't broke, you know, why fix it? It's Maxima doesn't break. I've never lost a fish on it after all these years. It's super dependable, takes abrasion very, very well.
You came up with another line today. You taught me another line today. I pulled some flies out of snags, and you said Maxima wins.
Maxima wins usually.
I love that. We're gonna get that on t-shirts too. Maxima wins. So that's it. Like you said, if you're trying to fish a little shallower water, you could go with a little bit longer leader. If you're trying to get really deep, you could go with a slightly shorter leader. But I think 3 to 5 foot. And I think that's the number one problem with people learning sink tips. I see people looping on. I don't ever use a loop. I don't ever use a loop, period. But I don't ever use a loop on a sink tip because that's going to impede the sink rate. It doesn't cast as well. The energy transfer is not as good. So you snell or nail knot that on there, blood knots to your fly, and of course a loop knot to the fly. But so many people loop on 9 foot leaders and then wonder why they don't get their fly down. You're never going to get a fly down with any. I don't care if you had a 900 grain sinking line. You're not going to get a fly down with a 9 foot leader. So can you talk just a pinch about the flies that we've been using today for our folks?
You know, we put in pretty early, right at first light, and you know, a lot of it's trial and error. Every year it's a little bit different, and a lot of it depends on your water flow. Right now, we're at about 1,200 on the lower river gauge. During the darker mornings, we've been actually getting them on broad profile stuff. You know, some of Kelly's flies like silk kitties or dungeons, just a little bit broader heads. The last week or so, it's been more of a thin profile game for me, just stuff that is a little bit thinner. We started off with the Peanut Envy and rode that here for quite a bit. Very, it's a great all-around fly. It was kind of a homage to Russ Madden's Circus Peanut, hence the Envy. And you know, it's one of our #1 producers day in, day out on the Madison since the inception. So we stuck with that. As the sun came up, we did get him on kind of the darker banks, but for the most part, you know, in the sunnier stuff, we did better on sort of the brighter stuff like your barely legals, sort of a little bait fish imitation, not super broad, but a little bit broader than the Envy because of the double wing on there. On Olive Boogeyman, there were some kind of shadier banks. And Olive Boogeyman's just always been one of my favorite Achilles flies in all the colors. I run them in black, white, olive, tan, you name it. But it's, you know, it's just sort of like the old heifer groomer, except they just replace most of the marabou. It gets down, and there's something about the contrast of flank feathers. I mean, you see it on the Drunken Disorderly and lots of other really popular streamers dating all the way back to the Hornberg. I mean, so that's kind of what we've been throwing, and more kind of leechier small bait fish imitations as we get into fall. And you know, we see some more aggressive fish, we start building on deeper profiles as well and start kind of in that more 5-6 inch stuff when we have overcast skies. But generally when the sun's up, you want to be a little less intrusive some days, and a lot of it again is trial and error. Every rule gets broken all the time. I mean, you can't just, you have educated guesses essentially that you build up over time, and you go through it through some sort of deductive reasoning until you figure it out. And sometimes there's nothing to figure out, but it's really cool when you do. It makes it feel worthwhile.
Well, that's the thing that's always amazed me about fishing with you guys here at the Slide Inn. You guys are constantly changing flies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know me, I'll tie on a swimming Jimmy and fish it all.
I know.
All day
I know you got
long.
a thing for the swimming Jimmy. It's
I do.
tough on this water though, because it's moving so fast, and I love that fly. I just really like more of a walking pace, little softer water for that sort of thing. I fish in the lake a lot, but it's just hard to get that thing down unless you're fishing about a 1 foot leader here.
You know, I like that fly probably more for largemouth and smallmouth than I do for trout fishing.
Okay.
I get it. I get it. I don't hold it against you, or at least not much that we're not fishing the swimming Jimmy. There's no better fly to me than the Peanut Envy. The Peanut Envy is so useful. It's easy to cast. It's got a great profile. It's got a cone head on it. The Boogeyman is another one of my favorites. That's a great smallmouth fly.
Yep.
And then, of course, the Barely Legal. How can you, I mean, again, another great smallmouth fly. How can you go wrong with a Barely Legal? These are all 3 top-selling flies in our shop and your shop.
Ours for sure.
And along with the dungeons and stuff. But so basically what you're saying is it has a lot to do with the profile of the fly, and then, of course, the color matters.
Absolutely.
And as the sun has come up, we've gone more with the Barely Legal, which is just a little bit brighter.
Yep.
I've fished with Kelly before, and I have seen him go through 8 flies in 15 minutes.
Yeah, he's a super changer. In fact, he'll actually switch when something's working just to see what else he can get to eat.
Well, that's just his nature. But
yeah.
So, and I actually talked to him about this not long ago. I asked him if he was a fan of Theodore Gordon, and whether he had studied much Theodore Gordon, and he said no, not really, because Theodore Gordon was really all about color with his dry flies. And he would switch up colors until he dialed in. And I asked Kelly, and he said, no, I really haven't. And I said, well, it's really funny because I know that Kelly, I've heard Kelly talk about starting with olive. If that doesn't work, go to yellow. If that doesn't work, go to black. If that doesn't work, go to... So you're alternating your
As long as
colors.
you have some sort of a system. I tend to go down the color line or up the color line based on what I've got. So dark day, dark fly, 90% of the time. I'll go black, olive, and then work my way up to bright, and occasionally start with white. That's usually what Kelly starts off with, is white in the morning.
White.
Yep, and that can also be good. There's something about the contrast to white first thing in the morning. But I don't know, a lot of it's just going through your system and developing a system that works for you, especially on your home waters and stuff. And every river's really different. I mean, right here, like the lower river, we actually do get fish on very flashy flies, sparkle minnows, and all sorts of stuff with a lot of bling in it. Upper river, it's just, you can get stuff on any, and we can get fish on it, but there's never been a day where I've knocked it on the park on super flash stuff. It's more of a dull river up there. Whereas you can go to the Yellowstone or the Missouri and you could throw, pretty much full on flash blue flies, and they'll be looking for it, your Crelexes and stuff like that. So a lot of it is the fun part is you have to go fishing to figure it all out,
You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I mean, we get the question, and I know you guys do too all the time, what's your favorite color, what's your favorite fly? And there's no such thing. It's on any given day, you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's part of fishing. So
yeah.
All right, friends, sorry to talk so much, but it's awful fun. It's not every day you get to hang out with the second best streamer fisherman that you know on the planet.
Yeah, far-fetched from that.
Come on. You're the second best streamer fisherman I know.
Yeah.
But I only know you and Kelly.
Yeah, okay, there you go. That makes it more fair then.
Your boss, our friend, my mentor, created an entire, not only a revolution, he created an entire industry. It's an entire industry.
Yeah.
I've been able to make a big part of my living, and so have you, due to Kelly. And of course, we don't want to blow him up too much. I don't think you can blow him up much further, but can't say enough about him. One of my closest friends, one of the best people I've ever known, and he created a revolution. He created an entire industry of flies. He changed our industry. He changed my job. He changed your job. He changed our lives, and we sure owe him a lot. That's for sure.
Never admit to that though. He'll never watch this. So.
Cut. Well, friends, thanks as always for watching. Just a few notes there on streamer fishing and the equipment that we've been using here on the Madison. As always, we appreciate you being here. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Hit that like button, that just makes us feel good. And stay tuned, we've got a lot more coming at you. If you like this video, hit subscribe. It helps out a lot. And check out these videos. We think you might like them too.